A spilled glass of orange juice was all my stepmother needed to turn my childhood into an invisible prison. She didn't hit, just a cold remark. "You embarrassed me." My sister held me later, whispering, "You'll understand one day." For years, I believed that was betrayal, until Christmas Eve at age 34, when a group text, a bank vault secret, and a party-turned-trial finally made me understand. And everyone else in that room understood, too. My name is Morgan Reyes, and the first coherent thought I had in over an hour was that the snow was trying to bury me. It fell in thick, wet sheets, silencing the Cleveland night, piling up on the windshield of my aging sedan. The wipers dragged, groaned, and finally gave up, leaving me in a blurry cocoon at the edge of the North Harbor Outreach Center parking lot. 12 hours, a double shift. My eyes burned, gritty with exhaustion and the lingering sting of industrial-strength coffee gone cold in the cup holder. The car smelled like that coffee, and beneath it, the inescapable tang of hospital-grade disinfectant that clung to my coat, my hair, my skin. It was the scent of other people's trauma. My hands were still trembling, not from the cold. The heater was blasting stale, dry air, but from the echo of the last call. A woman, barely 20, her voice a reedy whisper, detailing how her in-laws timed her showers, checked her grocery receipts, and told her husband she was an unfit mother for wanting to take a walk alone. The gaslighting was so precise, so suffocating, it had made my own stomach clench in a sickening knot of recognition. I'd spent 45 minutes walking her through a safety plan, my voice a mask of professional calm, teaching her the language of boundaries, words like unacceptable, non-negotiable. This is what I need. Words I never used at home. The vibration of my phone against the center console was abnormally loud in the sudden quiet. I flinched. The screen lit up, illuminating the falling snow with a pale blue light. A notification from Reyes Miller Christmas. My first instinct, a muscle memory of optimization, was that Valerie was texting to remind me what time to arrive tomorrow, to start the turkey, to prep the glaze for the ham, to make sure I'd gotten the specific brand of cranberries she liked, the usual pre-battle orders. I swiped the screen open, my thumb numb. The first message was from Valerie. "Christmas is just so hectic this year. Tessa's new boyfriend, Caleb, is bringing his parents. The table is going to be dreadfully tight. So I think it's just better if you and Harper eat at home. It will be so much cozier for you two. But if you have time, I still need you to come by and handle the cooking like every year. I simply can't manage it all. See you in the morning?" My breath hitched. The air in the car suddenly felt thin, unbreathable. I read the message again. Better if you and Harper eat at home. Not an invitation to eat at the kitchen counter, not a request to squeeze in, a dismissal, an uninvitation. Before I could even process the cold efficiency of the execution, a second message popped up beneath it, this one from my father, Mark. "Oh, and Morgan, while you're out, can you grab that bottle of Macallan like last year? The expensive one. His parents are whiskey people. I'll get you back for it later." A bitter laugh, small and dry, escaped my lips. Later, I glanced at my bank account app, already open from checking my meager paycheck deposit. Later was a mythical place my father often spoke of but never visited. Later meant never. It meant I was, once again, being asked to purchase the expensive gift used to impress the guests I was explicitly barred from meeting. A cold sweat, entirely separate from the Cleveland winter, prickled my scalp and ran down my back, plastering my worn scrubs to my skin. This wasn't an oversight. This was a calculated move. Valerie was curating her perfect Christmas, presenting her perfect stepdaughter, Tessa, and her new, wealthy lawyer boyfriend. And in that pristine tableau, there was no room for the crisis counselor stepdaughter, no room for the granddaughter who didn't fit the mold. We were the clutter. We were the mess to be hidden before the company arrived. My mind flashed, unbidden, to last Christmas, and the one before that, and the one before that, stretching back nearly a decade. Me, standing for 8 hours over their stove, sweat dripping into my eyes, my back screaming. Me, plating food for 20 people. And then, me and Harper, perched on 2 stools at the tiny kitchen island, wolfing down lukewarm leftovers, while the sound of laughter and clinking glasses drifted in from the formal dining room. "It's just easier this way," Valerie would say, bustling past to grab more wine. "You two are fine back here, right? It saves us moving all the chairs." And like a fool, I'd always said, "Of course, we're fine." My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text, but a voice message from Valerie. Her icon, a professionally shot photo of her and my father on a cruise ship, beamed at me. I pressed play, and the speaker filled the car with her signature smooth, melodic voice, the one she used on strangers and sales clerks. "Morgan, honey, I just wanted to add one more thing," she chirped, the sound like sweet poison. "You know how appearances are. Caleb's family is very put together, and we just want to make a good impression. You know Harper can get a little overwhelmed. I just wouldn't want anyone to see her having trouble sitting still at the table. That's all. It's better for her. Really. Less stress. You understand? Love you, love." The message ended. The shame was so thick I could taste it. Metallic and sour. It wasn't just me she was ashamed of. It was my daughter, my 8-year-old child, who Valerie treated like a social liability because she was sensitive to loud noises and preferred to talk about cephalopods rather than make polite small talk. "Mommy?" The small voice from the back seat shattered the toxic silence. I'd almost forgotten she was there. Harper had been asleep, bundled in her parka, worn out from her after-school session at the therapy center. I twisted in my seat. Her face was flushed from sleep, her eyes bright in the darkness. She was holding something up, a small, beaded keychain. "Look, Mommy, Dr. Elena gave it to me. It's a harbor seal. She said I was a focused listener today." Harper beamed, her pride radiant, a pure, uncomplicated thing. "Are we going home now? Is it almost Christmas? Are we going to have the special eggnog like last year, the one I helped you make?" The two worlds collided so violently it knocked the wind out of me. The world I fought for every day at the center, where I championed women and children, teaching them their worth, and this world, my real world, where I sat in a freezing car, actively disinvited from my own family, listening to my stepmother weaponize my daughter's beautiful, unique mind as a social inconvenience. My thumb hovered over the call button next to Valerie's name. The script, old and well-rehearsed, played out in my head. I would call, I would apologize, though I wasn't sure for what. For existing, probably, for having a child who was not a perfect automaton. I would say, "Of course, I understand, no problem at all." And then I would promise to be there at 8 a.m. sharp with the groceries. And yes, I'd pick up the $100 whiskey. I would accept the task, absorb the insult, and bury the rage, just as I had always done. I would do it to keep the peace. I would do it because my father was too weak to do it for me. I would do it because it was easier than the fight. But as I stared at the glowing green icon, another image superimposed itself over Valerie's smiling face, a different memory, sharp and cold. I am 8 years old. It's our first Christmas in this house with her. The carpet is new, a pristine, unforgivable cream color. I am holding a tall glass of orange juice, concentrating so hard on not spilling. My small hands shaking with the effort. The glass slips. The world narrows to the bright orange splash, the sound of the heavy tumbler hitting the plush floor. Valerie's face, not angry, but something worse, a look of cold, profound disappointment, as if I had personally betrayed her. "You've embarrassed me," she whispered, her voice like ice, yanking me by the arm into the kitchen. Later, hidden in the upstairs hallway, my older sister Tessa found me crying. She didn't hug me. She just stood there, awkwardly, before handing me a tissue. "Don't let her see you upset," she hissed. "You just have to be better." And then, the words that had haunted me for over 25 years. "You'll understand one day, Morgan." I had always thought she meant I'd understand why I deserved the punishment. Sitting in my car, the snow piling up like a shroud, I finally understood something else entirely. My thumb moved from the call button. I pressed the power button on the side of the phone instead. The screen went black, extinguishing Valerie's face in the waiting script. I turned the ringer to silent. I leaned my head back against the worn headrest, the fabric scratching my neck. For the first time, I didn't try to fix it. I didn't apologize. I didn't immediately scramble to make myself smaller, more convenient, more palatable. I just sat there, in the quiet, dark car, while the snow fell. Harper started humming a song about dolphins in the back seat, and I knew, with a certainty that was as cold and hard as the ice forming on the windshield, that I would not be cooking their Christmas dinner. I knew that tonight, something had finally, irrevocably broken, and it wasn't the glass of orange juice. It was the prison. That night in the car, the memory didn't just surface, it swallowed me whole. The smell of the cold vinyl and the faint hum of the engine dissolved, replaced by the scent of pine needles and expensive potpourri. I am 8 years old. It's our first Christmas since my father married Valerie. My real mother, Julia, has been gone for 2 years, long enough for her scent to fade from the closets, but not long enough for the house to feel like anyone else's. Yet, Valerie has managed it. The old Cleveland townhouse, once filled with mismatched furniture and my mother's chaotic, colorful art, is now a shrine to beige. Everything is tasteful and understated. And flawless. The Christmas tree is the worst. It's perfect. Not a single ornament is out of place. They are all silver or gold, orbs and angels, spaced with geometric precision, glowing with sterile white lights. There are no lopsided gingerbread men, no popsicle stick reindeer. It's a tree for a magazine, not a home. I am desperate to be a part of this new, shiny world. I am 8 years old, and I am terrified that my own clumsy, grieving, 8-year-old self is the one thing in the house that doesn't match the new decor. I want Valerie to look at me with the same pride she reserves for a well-placed floral arrangement. So when she turns to me, her voice as smooth as the silk blouse she's wearing, I am vibrating with eagerness. "Morgan, honey, be a love and help Mommy. The guests need their juice. Can you pour the orange juice into the good glasses?" The good glasses. They are heavy. Crystal tumblers, kept on a high shelf. It's a test, a promotion. I am being trusted. "Yes, Valerie," I say, my voice a squeak. I am not allowed to call her Mom. She has me stand on a kitchen stool. The pitcher is heavy, sweating with condensation, and my small hands struggle to get a grip, but I manage. I pour 12 perfect glasses, lining them up on a heavy silver tray. I am so proud. I am helping. I am part of the picture. "Now just bring them into the living room. Dear, don't spill." Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. It never does. The living room is full of adult laughter. The sound of Bing Crosby singing White Christmas and the smell of Valerie's expensive perfume. And in the center of it all, the new carpet, a vast, terrifying expanse of cream-colored wool. It was Valerie's first major purchase for the house, a symbol of the new regime. I am concentrating so hard. My tongue sticks out the corner of my mouth. I take one step onto the rug, then another. I can feel the eyes of the guests, my father's friends and their wives, all turning to me. And that's when it happens. Maybe my slipper catches the plush edge of the rug. Maybe the tray simply becomes too heavy for my trembling arms. I don't just spill one glass, I stumble. The entire tray tilts. 12 crystal tumblers, a gallon of bright, acidic orange juice, and a tidal wave of ice cubes crash onto the immaculate cream carpet. The music doesn't stop, but it feels like it does. The laughter cuts off as if by a switch. The only sound is the heavy roll of a single glass tumbler spinning in a circle before clinking to a stop, and the sound of my own breathing, which has stopped in my chest. Valerie does not scream, She does not shout. She doesn't have to. She simply glides across the room. She looks down at the mess, a horrific, bright orange stain spreading like a sickness, and then she looks at me. Her face is not angry. It is worse. It is a look of cold, bottomless disappointment. A look that says, I knew it. I knew you were the one thing I couldn't fix. You've embarrassed me, she whispers. The words are for my ears only, sharp and venomous. Then, she acts. Her hand snakes out and grips my upper arm, her nails digging through my velvet Christmas dress. She yanks me up. Come with me, now, to the guests. She forces a brittle laugh. Oh, this clumsy, clumsy girl. I'll be right back. Everyone, Mark, get them a drink. She doesn't drag me to my room. She drags me to the kitchen, shoves me toward the utility closet under the stairs, and pulls out the cleaning caddy. It's full of harsh chemicals, abrasive sponges, and old rags. She throws a rag at my feet, right at the edge of the spreading orange lake. Clean it. With what? I whisper, tears already welling, hot and thick. With this, she grabs a bottle of foul-smelling carpet cleaner and sprays it, the foam hissing as it hits the wool. On your knees, now. I am 8 years old, in my party dress, on my hands and knees in a puddle of orange juice. She doesn't leave. She stands over me. For over an hour, I scrub. The fumes burn my nose and make my eyes water, but I don't dare wipe them. My knees are rubbed raw, aching from the pressure against the floor. My hands are red and chapped from the chemicals, the juice stinging the raw skin. And for that entire hour, she talks. Her voice is low, calm, and utterly devastating. Do you have any idea what this looks like? She murmurs, as if sharing a secret. All our guests, my new carpet, ruined. You ruined it. I'm sorry, I sob, scrubbing harder. Sorry doesn't fix the carpet. Do you know what they're all thinking in there? They're thinking, that poor Valerie, that poor woman, having to deal with such a difficult, clumsy child. You make me look bad. Morgan, you make me look like I can't control my own home. She paces, a shark in shallow water. This is the problem, she continues, almost to herself. You make me look like the evil stepmother. People see a mess like this. They hear me scolding you. And you know what they think? They think you made me do it. They think you are such a problem child that I have to be harsh. Is that what you want? For everyone to think you're the reason I'm upset? I am choking on the fumes, on the logic. I am the one on the floor. But I am the one with the power. I am the one making her be this person. The stain isn't the problem. I am the problem. The spill is just the proof. I'm sorry, I say again. The only words I have. I'll be good. Just clean, she sighs, as if my very existence is a burden she is too polite to mention. My father appears once. He wanders in, drink in hand, looking confused. What's all this? She's still cleaning? She had a terrible accident. Mark, Valerie says, her voice instantly changing, becoming laced with a weary maternal sadness. She's just learning her lesson. Aren't you, honey? My father looks at me, on the floor, crying. He looks at Valerie, standing tall and in control. He looks at the stain. He hates conflict. He hates messes. Well, listen to your mother, honey, he says, his voice weak. Get it cleaned up. We're opening presents soon. And he leaves. He turns his back and walks away, back to the laughter, leaving me in the chemical fog with her. That was the moment I learned that he would never, ever save me. Finally, after my knees have gone numb and the orange has faded to a pale, sickly yellow shadow, she inspects my work. Fine, that's the best you can do, I suppose. Go wash your hands. You stink of chemicals. But the performance isn't over. This is the master stroke. She follows me to the powder room. As I'm drying my stinging hands, she bends down, scoops me up into her arms, and carries me back to the living room. I am rigid with shock. She hasn't held me since the wedding. She breezes back into the party, holding me like a prized doll, and laughs, a bright, tinkling, forgiving laugh. We're back! This little clumsy boots is all finished. She had a little spill, but she's the best little helper, isn't she? She wipes a tear track from my cheek with her thumb, a gesture of pure, public tenderness. The guests all coo. Oh, kids will be kids. What a handful. You're so patient. Valerie, a saint. I am trapped. I am sitting in her lap, smelling her perfume, feeling the raw burn on my knees under my dress, and listening to a room full of adults praise her for the very cruelty she just inflicted on me. I smile, because I know that is what I'm supposed to do. Later that night, after the guests are gone, I am hiding, not in my room, but on the small, freezing cold sun porch, huddled behind a stack of patio furniture. The sliding glass door opens. It's Tessa, my stepsister, 12 years old, 4 years older than me, and already a perfect study in self-preservation. She's Valerie's daughter from her first marriage, and she's already learned all the rules. She doesn't say anything, she just wordlessly hands me a small Afghan blanket. I pull it around my shoulders, my body still shaking. "Don't cry so loud," she hisses, not unkindly, just stating a fact. "Mom will hear you, and she'll say you're embarrassing her all over again." She stands there awkwardly for a moment, a skinny silhouette against the living room lights. "She's just," Tessa sighs, looking out at the dark, snowy yard. "I know she's hard, but you'll understand one day. Morgan, you'll understand why she's like this." She leaves me there, and I am left with those words, which feel like a final betrayal. You'll understand. I take it to mean that one day, I will also be an adult, and I will understand that children who spill things deserve to be humiliated. I believe her. I believe that she, the older, wiser sister, is on Valerie's side, that she accepts the terms of this new life, and that I am the only one left who is broken. From that night on, the orange juice is the ghost that haunts the house. Every time I drop a fork. Careful, Morgan, remember the carpet. Every time I knock over a book. Honestly, that innate clumsiness, just like the orange juice, it becomes the founding myth of my childhood. I am Morgan, the clumsy one, the problem one, the one who makes messes. And so I learn. I learn to move through the house like a ghost. I learn to be quiet, to be small, to be invisible. I learn to anticipate needs before they are spoken. I become the one who does the dishes without being asked, who preemptively wipes down counters, who sets the table, who organizes the pantry. I become the perfect, silent helper, in a desperate, 27-year attempt to prove I am not the girl who spilled the juice. I spend my whole life trying to scrub a stain that Valerie painted on me. Back in the car, the snow is still falling, but the memory has receded, leaving an Arctic chill in its wake. Harper is humming, a quiet, happy sound from the back seat. I finally understand what that night was. It wasn't a lesson in responsibility. It was a lesson in scapegoating. It wasn't about a carpet. It was about power. It was the night Valerie taught me, and my father, and my sister, that my designated role in this family was to be the repository for all her shame, all her insecurity, and all her rage. The disgust I feel is so profound. It's like I've been holding my breath since I was 8 years old, and I've only just, finally, exhaled. This is my life at 35, by day. I am a different Morgan. At the North Harbor Outreach Center. I am competent. I am respected. I am the one with the calm voice and the steel spine. My official title is Crisis Counselor, which is a clinical-sounding term for someone who spends 10 hours a day diving headfirst into the worst moments of other people's lives. I specialize in family-based coercion and control. I am an expert in identifying the subtle, insidious tactics of gaslighting, financial abuse, and emotional manipulation. I sit across from women who have been told for so long that they are worthless, crazy, or too sensitive, that they have forgotten their own names. I draw roadmaps for them. I create safety plans, find shelter beds, and walk them through filing restraining orders. I teach them how to open a secret bank account, how to document abuse, how to say no and make it stick. My colleagues call me the boundary whisperer. Last week at our team meeting, my boss, Maria, pointed me out as the standard. If you're stuck, she said, ask Morgan. She knows how to set a boundary for a client better than anyone. It's a grotesque irony. I am a master architect of escape routes for others, while I am still trapped in the very prison I was born into. My professional success is built on a lifetime of studying my own captor. Then there is Harper, my daughter, my 8-year-old anchor and my 8-year-old North Star. She is brilliant, and she is different, and she sees the world in ways I never will. She is a tiny, passionate biologist, obsessed with the deep ocean. She can tell you the exact pressure tolerance of a colossal squid and will lecture you for 20 minutes on the bioluminescent properties of anglerfish. She is also sensitive to sensory input. Loud, sudden noises make her jump. Certain food textures make her gag. And when she's anxious, she needs to move, to flap her hands, to pace. We've been working with a child psychologist and an occupational therapist. They've given us tools, language, and support. They've helped me understand that her brain is just wired differently, beautifully. My main battle is getting her school to provide the accommodations she's legally entitled to see her strengths, not just the challenges. Valerie, of course, sees it all as a personal affront. A sensory processing disorder? She scoffed just last month. During one of my obligatory Sunday visits, I had made the mistake of explaining why Harper couldn't wear the itchy wool sweater Valerie had bought her. In my day, we had a word for that. It was called being a brat. We didn't have the luxury of all these diagnoses. You just did what you were told, and you turned out fine. She conveniently forgets the part where I didn't turn out fine. I turned out to be her unpaid, on-call servant, haunted by a fineness that was really just pulverized self-esteem. My life is a constant, frantic barter system because I am a single mother and my salary at a nonprofit barely covers rent and student loans. I am still financially, and therefore emotionally, tethered to them. I often need them to watch Harper for an hour or two between when her school ends and my shift is over. This childcare is never, ever free. Valerie has a bad back, and my father has a bad knee, so they can't possibly come to my apartment. I must always bring Harper to them. The toll for this service is steep. A request to watch Harper for 90 minutes on a Tuesday means I am expected to arrive an hour early on Saturday to do their heavy lifting. This translates to me scrubbing their bathrooms, vacuuming the entire house, and cooking 3 or 4 freezable meals for them, all while Valerie supervises from the kitchen table with a magazine, pointing out spots I missed. "You're just so good at this, Morgan," she'll say, her voice dripping with false admiration, loud enough for my father to hear. "It's such a blessing to have such a helpful daughter. I don't know what we'd do without you." It's a performance, and it serves 2 purposes. It cements my role as the help, and it makes my father feel grateful and indebted to her for managing me. My evenings are a blur of client case files, Harper's homework, and a third, unpaid job, managing my family's emotional and financial expectations. Just last night, I was on my laptop, trying to finish a report, when my phone buzzed. It was Tessa. "Hey, so, big news. Caleb and I set a date. But, the planning is a nightmare. His family is a lot. They're used to a certain level of things, you know? I knew what was coming. Anyway," the text continued, "we're having a formal engagement party at the country club, and I'm a little short on the deposit. I was wondering if you could help, just to get us over the line. His parents are paying for so much. I just don't want our side to look cheap." I felt the familiar sinking feeling, the cold dread of an obligation I couldn't afford, but wasn't allowed to refuse. Then came the final turn of the screw. "I know you get it, Morgan. You've always been the one who saves the day. You're my rock." I'm your rock. It's the sisterly version of "you're a good helper." It's the lie we've both agreed to live by. Tessa, the perfect, beautiful one who gets to be fragile and needs saving. Me, the clumsy, difficult one who has to buy her worth by being strong, by being the rock. I opened my banking app, my stomach churning. I scrolled through the last 6 months of transactions, a sea of debits. $25 here for Valerie's special face cream, $50 there for my dad's forgotten electric bill, the $150 for Tessa's bridesmaid dress for a friend's wedding. The loans were never loans. They were just absorbed. I did a quick, nauseating calculation. In the last year, I had given them, in small, bleeding increments, over $3,000. $3,000 I didn't have. $3,000 that should have been for Harper's therapy, or new tires for my car, or a savings account that didn't exist. My professional life and personal life collided in a spectacular wreck just 2 days ago. I was in that team meeting, the one where my boss, Maria, was praising me. "Morgan, the board is so impressed with your client outcome reports," she'd said. "They're considering creating a new senior advocate position. It would mean a raise, more responsibility. It's yours if you want it." A raise, real money, a path out. For a split second, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Then, after the meeting, I knocked on her door. I should have been discussing the promotion. Instead, I heard Valerie's voice in my head. "I simply can't manage. I don't know what we'd do without you." "Maria?" I'd said, my voice sounding small. "Thank you for the kind words. I'm so grateful. But about that promotion, I don't think I can take on more responsibility right now. In fact, I was wondering, is there any chance I could pick up some extra overnight shifts? I really need the money. My parents, they need some help right now." Maria's face fell, her confusion palpable, but she just nodded, professionalism clicking back into place. "Of course, Morgan, I'll see what I can do." But the moment that truly crystallized it all, the moment that set the stage for the Christmas Eve text, happened last Saturday. I had to drop Harper off at their house. It was one of the free visits, which meant Valerie was in a good mood. She was getting ready for a dinner party. I was in the kitchen, making Harper a snack. When my father and Valerie walked into the adjoining living room, Harper, sitting at the table, was in the middle of a very excited, very detailed explanation of the differences between the giant squid and the colossal squid. "And the giant squid has suckers with tiny teeth, but the colossal squid has swiveling hooks," she was saying, her eyes wide with wonder, her hands flapping slightly in her excitement. I saw Valerie lean in close to my father's ear. She didn't see me watching. She didn't know I could read her lips, a skill I'd perfected as a child to survive her moods. "She's at it again with the whales," Valerie whispered, her mouth a tight, annoyed line. "It's so tiresome. Can you make her stop?" Harper, who misses nothing, stopped talking, mid-word. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just deflated. Her shoulders slumped. Her hands went still. She picked up a crayon and looked down at her paper, her small face closing like a shutter. The silence was deafening. Later, when we were in the car, I tried to restart the conversation. "So what else did you learn about the colossal squid, sweetie?" She was quiet for a long time, tracing the window fog with her finger. Then, in a voice so small it barely existed, she asked, "Mommy, does talking about squids make Grandma tired?" My heart, which I thought had already been broken into as many pieces as possible, found a new way to shatter. I saw myself, 8 years old, on my knees, scrubbing at a stain and promising to be good, to be quiet, to be less, the same lesson, delivered by the same woman. To a new generation, your existence, your joy, your very presence, is tiresome. "No, baby," I'd said, my voice thick. "No, you are not tiresome. Your squids are not tiresome. You are perfect. Never, ever think that." But I knew she already did. The seed had been planted. And that is the backdrop for this Christmas. That is the stage on which Valerie's text message landed. After the scene with Harper, the missed promotion, the text from Tessa, I was already so raw, so close to the edge. The final blow, of course, had come that evening, just before I left the center. After the voice message telling me my daughter was a social embarrassment, another text from Valerie popped up in the group chat, as if she hadn't just dismembered me. And Morgan, honey, I know you're not officially coming, but I'm still counting on you for the roasted chicken and the big batch of your potato salad. You can just drop it off in the morning. Everyone just loves it so. It wouldn't be Christmas without it. I looked at that message. It wouldn't be Christmas without it. She didn't mean it wouldn't be Christmas without me, or without Harper. It wouldn't be Christmas without my labor. I looked at my own daughter, sleeping in the back seat, clutching a book about the ocean as if it were a life raft. And that's when the thought, clear and cold as the snow outside, finally formed, a thought I'd never allowed myself to have. If one of my clients came to me with this exact story, with the financial abuse, the isolation, the calculated humiliation, the emotional manipulation of her child, what would I tell her? I wouldn't tell her to be grateful. I wouldn't tell her to keep the peace. I wouldn't tell her to buy the damn whiskey. I'd tell her to run. I'd tell her to document everything. I'd tell her to get a lawyer. And I'd tell her to burn it all to the ground. The days following the Christmas Eve text were a new kind of silent. I had not responded. Not to Valerie's dismissal. Not to my father's request for expensive whiskey. Not to the follow-up from Tessa. This silence was a vacuum, and it was terrifying. But it was also the first truly solid thing I had ever owned. My lack of response, however, couldn't stop the machinery of our enmeshed lives. 2 days before Christmas, my father's pharmacy auto-refill text came through. His blood pressure medication was ready, and I was the one listed on the account for pickup. This was the system Valerie had designed. I was still responsible for my father's maintenance, even if I was barred from his table. I went to their house in the middle of a gray, freezing afternoon. I planned to be in and out in less than 30 seconds. Just drop the paper bag on the hall table, yell, "Dad, meds are here," and leave. But when I used my old key to let myself in, the house was quiet in a strange way. Valerie was home. Her Lexus was in the driveway, but she wasn't bustling. I found her in the kitchen, her back to me, cooing into her phone in that syrupy sweet voice she reserved for people she wanted to impress. "Oh, I know, she was saying, stirring a cup of tea. "It's just better to get it all squared away now, before he starts getting, ideas. We'll just transfer the deed over. It's cleaner." I froze in the hallway, my boots dripping melted snow onto the hardwood floor. There was a pause. Valerie laughed, a tight, unpleasant sound. "Exactly. Once it's in Elliot's name, it's safe. It's not like the other two are contributing to the upkeep. Mark agrees. He just needs a little push. I'm seeing the lawyer on the 27th to get the papers drawn up. It's the best way to protect our future, before they start asking for what they think they're owed." My blood went so cold it felt like it had turned to slush. Elliot, that was her son. Her son from her first marriage, a man in his 40s who lived in Arizona and who I hadn't seen in a decade. Transfer the deed, before they start asking. I must have made a sound, a gasp, or maybe my boot squeaked. Valerie's head whipped around. Her eyes, for 1/10 of a second, were wide with pure, undiluted panic. She looked like a cornered animal. Then, in a blink, the mask snapped back into place. "Morgan," she chirped, her hand flying to her chest as she aggressively clicked the end call button. "My goodness, you scared the life out of me. I didn't hear you come in. Just dropping off those pills? You're a lifesaver." "Who were you talking to?" The question was out of my mouth before I could stop it. My voice was flat, devoid of the usual pleading tone she was used to. She faltered again, just for a second. "Oh, just the contractor. About the kitchen." She waved vaguely at the perfectly fine granite countertops. "This remodel is so stressful. You have no idea. We were just talking about, the costs. And and which name to put on the work orders. It was a terrible lie, a sloppy first draft lie. People don't transfer the deed for a kitchen remodel. People don't protect their future in Elliot's name when talking to a contractor. She knew I'd heard, and she knew I didn't believe her. The air crackled with the unsaid. "Dad's meds are on the table," I said. I turned and walked out the door, ignoring her high-pitched, suddenly frantic, "Wait, honey, what about Christmas? Did you get my message?" That night, my phone rang. It was Tessa. I let it go to voicemail. But she immediately texted, "Please, it's about Mom. I'm scared." I called her back. Her voice was a whisper, as if she was afraid of being overheard in her own apartment. "Morgan, Mom is acting so weird," she breathed. "She's been talking about securing the family legacy ever since Caleb and I got serious. She keeps making me promise I'll behave and that she'll make it worth my while when the house is settled." "What does that mean, settled?" I asked, my voice still flat. "I don't know. That's why it's weird. She said that as long as we were good girls, she would make sure we were arranged for later. But it felt wrong. Morgan, it felt like she was warning me. Like she's doing something with the house. Did you feel that? Do you know anything?" For the first time in our lives, my sister wasn't telling me to calm down. She was terrified, and she was asking me for information. The perfect daughter, the one on the inside, was on the outside with me. "She's transferring the house to Elliot's name," I said. There was a long, terrible silence on the other end. "What? No, she wouldn't. Dad wouldn't let her. That house. Half of it was from your mom." I heard her. "Tessa. She's seeing a lawyer on the 27th. I heard Tessa start to cry. A thin, weak sound. "But my wedding, the party. She said she was taking care of everything." I hung up. I didn't have the energy to manage Tessa's crumbling fantasy. I had my own to deal with. I went to my closet. On the top shelf, buried under old sweaters, was a small tin box. It had been my mother's. It smelled like dust and old paper and the faintest, ghostly trace of her perfume. I hadn't opened it in years. It was full of her things. Her nursing school graduation photo, a few pieces of costume jewelry, a lock of my baby hair. And papers? I sat on my bedroom floor and dumped the contents out. And there, folded into a neat square, was a document. It was a scanned copy, slightly blurry, but the letterhead was from a law firm. Sussman, Doyle, and Associates. And at the top, the words, "Last Will and Testament of Julia Reyes." My hands were shaking so hard I could barely unfold it. It was dated a few months before she died, back when she knew she was sick. I had been too young to understand any of this. I scanned the dense legal text, my heart hammering against my ribs. And then I saw it. Article 4, regarding real property. "The residential property located at 214 Elmwood Drive, Cleveland, Ohio," it read, "is my primary asset, held in joint tenancy with my husband, Mark Reyes. In the event of my death, my husband shall retain his right of survivorship. However, should my husband, Mark Reyes, remarry, it is my explicit and binding wish that upon his death, the full value of said property shall not pass to his new spouse, but shall instead be divided equally between my two beloved daughters, Morgan Julia Reyes and Tessa Marie Reyes." I read it again and again. She had protected me. My mother, Julia, a woman I barely remembered, had seen the future. She had seen, perhaps, the kind of weakness in my father that I was only just now understanding. She had known he would remarry, and she had put a firewall in place to protect her children. This document, this was why Valerie had spent 27 years painting me as the clumsy, difficult, ungrateful, problematic one. This is why she had to shrink me, to push me out, to make me seem unstable. Because if I was a competent, stable adult, I might one day start asking questions. I realized with dawning horror, if Valerie convinced my father to sign the house over to her or to Elliot now, while he was alive, the will would be meaningless. the house would be gone before he died, leaving nothing for the will to act upon. She wasn't just planning for the future, she was actively, in real time, attempting to disinherit us. My professional brain, the crisis counselor, finally took over. The fog of childhood trauma and emotional pain receded, replaced by the cold, clear focus of a case file. Subject: Valerie Reyes. Tactic: financial abuse, isolation, manipulation. Goal: theft of inheritance. I turned on my laptop. I began to collect what I now recognized as soft evidence. My father, technologically inept, had linked his email to mine years ago so I could help him with the bills. I started digging. I found the emails from the bank. A new home equity line of credit had been opened 6 months ago. The request was signed by Mark Reyes and Valerie Reyes. I found the home insurance declarations. 3 years ago, Valerie's name had been added to the policy. Last year, my mother's name, Julia, had been officially removed. I found the emails from my father. Morgan, my printer is on the fritz. Can you print this for me? It's just some tax stuff. Attached was a property tax assessment, and I saw that the primary occupant fields had been amended. The girl who was good for nothing but scrubbing floors and cooking meals, had been his unpaid paralegal for years. I had been handling the very paperwork that documented my own erasure, and I had never once seen it. The next morning, I took a personal day. I went to the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, the same place I sent my most vulnerable clients. I didn't use my own name. I used my client persona. I sat across from a tired-looking lawyer named Mr. Dawson. "I have a client," I said, my voice steady. "She's in a difficult family situation. Her mother passed away, left a will. Father remarried. The second wife is now, we believe, trying to convince the father to sign the family home over to the stepmother's son from a different marriage, effectively disinheriting my client." Dawson sighed. He steepled his fingers. "This isn't a difficult situation, ma'am. This is a classic case of what we call testamentary interference and undue influence. It happens every day." I pushed the blurry scan of my mother's will across the table. "This is what the original will states." He read it. His eyebrows shot up. "Well, this is an ironclad clause. Your client's mother was a very smart woman. The new wife can't just bypass this, unless she gets him to transfer the asset before he dies." I finished. He nodded, impressed. "Exactly. If the house is gone, the will has nothing to act on. The stepmother wins." He looked at me. "Your client needs to find the original, notarized copy of this will. A copy is good, but the original is a fortress. It's likely in a safe deposit box, or with the original law firm." He told me that if Valerie was actively doing this, it was a profound breach of trust. And if my client could prove her father was being manipulated or wasn't of sound mind, the transfer could be contested. "But a contest," he warned, "is ugly and expensive. The best thing? Stop the transfer before it happens. Confront the father with the will. Remind him of his first wife's wishes." I left the legal aid office an hour later. The air was bitingly cold, but I didn't feel it. I wasn't the 8-year-old girl with the orange juice anymore. I wasn't the 35-year-old failure being kicked out of Christmas. I was the daughter of Julia Reyes, and I was holding a weapon. It wasn't a knife. It wasn't a threat. It was something far more powerful. It was the law. It was the truth. And it was the last, loving, protective words of my mother, reaching out from the grave. Valerie hadn't just spilled some juice. She had started a war with a ghost, and she was about to find out that the ghost had an heir. The shaky, adrenalized power I felt after the legal aid meeting lasted exactly 24 hours. It was the eve of Christmas Eve. I was sitting on my apartment floor, building a block tower with Harper, when my laptop chimed. An email from Valerie. The subject line was, "Christmas Day Master List." It was a full-blown PDF attachment, 3 pages long, complete in a festive red and green font. It was a minute-by-minute schedule of tasks. My name. Morgan, was next to 90% of them. 7 a.m. Morgan prep turkey, insert into oven. 9 a.m. Morgan boil potatoes for salad, begin pie crusts. 11:30 a.m. Morgan set main dining table. 1 p.m. Morgan finalize all side dishes. It was a work of breathtaking audacity. She had not only ignored my silence, she had escalated. My previous text, the one that had uninvited me from the table, had been erased. I was simply being reinstated, not as a guest, but as the unpaid caterer. This list was her way of telling me that our previous conversation and my very existence was only relevant in the context of her needs. I stared at the screen. The block tower tipped over. Harper didn't notice. I felt the old familiar panic rising, the urge to simply obey, to apologize for the silence, to get in the car and buy the cranberries. Instead, I opened a reply. My fingers, the ones I used to type life-saving resources for my clients, were trembling so hard I kept hitting the wrong keys. I wrote one sentence. Dear Valerie, thank you for this detailed list. Unfortunately, I will not be able to provide any of these items or perform these tasks. As previously stated, Harper and I will be making our own plans this year. I will not be coming to the house. I hit send before I could lose my nerve. The phone rang in less than 30 seconds. I saw her name flash on the screen. Valerie. I took a deep breath, walked into my small kitchen, and pressed accept. Morgan. Honey? Her voice was a waterfall of thick, concerned sweetness. Thank God you answered. I got the most bizarre, cold email from you. I was so worried. Are you all right, darling? Did something happen? The gaslighting was immediate. My email was not a response. It was an event. I was not a person setting a boundary. I was a problem to be managed. I'm fine, Valerie, I said. My voice was tight. Well, you don't sound fine. You sound cold. It's not like you. Did you even get my texts about Christmas? I've been planning this perfect day. Tessa's new beau. His family. It's all so important. I got your texts. Valerie, the one uninviting me from the table, and the one asking me to cook the dinner anyway. I am declining. The sweetness vanished, clicked off like a light switch. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. I see, she said, her voice dropping 10 degrees. So this is what it is. Selfishness. After everything I have done for this family, after I took you in, this is the thanks I get. You've decided to be selfish. It's not selfish, I began, but she cut me off. Do not interrupt me. You have no idea what you're doing. You're not just hurting me. Do you even care what you're doing to your father? He has been wandering around this house, heartbroken, just devastated. He just wants his family together for Christmas, and you have decided to stab him in the back. For what? Morgan? For some petty, childish mood? This isn't about Dad, I said, my grip on the phone tightening. It is all about your father. He is so stressed, and you are making it worse. His pressure. You know he can't handle this. She was breathing hard now. Here, talk to him. You tell him you're ruining his Christmas. There was a muffled sound, and then my father's voice, weak and reedy, flooded the line. Morgan? Honey? What's all this? Valerie is just beside herself. Hi, Dad, I whispered. Honey, it's just potato salad. Can't you just make the potato salad and come over? For me? Please? It's Christmas. Let's not make waves. Just do what she says. Let's have a nice, quiet day. Let's not make waves. The motto of my entire childhood, the epitaph on my mother's grave. He was asking me, plainly, to swallow the poison so he didn't have to taste it. He was asking me to get back on my knees and scrub the carpet so he could go back to the living room. That's when the training kicked in. The years of crisis intervention. I couldn't do it for myself, but I could do it for a client. I pictured myself at my desk, my voice calm, walking a terrified woman through this exact phone call. Dad, I said, and my voice was suddenly clearer, colder. I love you. But this is not about potato salad, and I will not be discussing this further with you. Can you please put Valerie back on? Oh, he said, sounding small and confused. Well, all right, hold on. The fumbling, and then her voice, sharp and suspicious. What? I took a deep breath. I recited the script. Valerie, I understand that you are disappointed by my decision. I hear that you are upset. Disappointed? She shrieked. I am furious. You are an ungrateful, selfish... I understand that you feel that way, I said, cutting her off, my voice a monotone. However, my decision is final. Harper and I will be making our own plans this year. You? She sputtered, unused to being interrupted, unused to her script being ignored. You will regret this, Morgan. You will be all alone, and you will have no one to blame but yourself. I understand that is your perspective, I said. My decision is final. I have to go now. Goodbye. I hung up. My hand was shaking so violently I dropped the phone on the tile. It clattered loudly. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I slid down the kitchen cabinet and sat on the floor, breathing in the smell of old linoleum and dust. I had done it. I had actually done it. The reprieve lasted less than 5 minutes. My phone buzzed on the floor. A text from Tessa. Morgan, what the hell are you doing? I just got off the phone with Mom. She is hysterical. She said you screamed at her and told her you hate her and Dad. You're ruining Christmas. Caleb's parents are flying in tomorrow. And you've decided now is the time to be a complete and total drama queen? You are so embarrassing. You have been so weird ever since you started working at that crazy center. You sound just like one of those bitter divorced women. Fix this, now. Apologize to her. I read the message, and I felt the fight drain out of me, replaced by a deep, aching cold. This was worse than Valerie's rage. This was the good daughter, the perfect one. My sister, mobilized as Valerie's weapon. She was calling me a drama queen for not wanting to be the unpaid help. She was calling me embarrassing for not being silent. You'll understand one day. Tessa's words from the porch, I was finally understanding. She wasn't just my sister. She was a warden, assigned to keep me in my cell. I didn't text her back. I couldn't. I remembered my own advice to clients. You do not have to engage. You do not have to respond to an accusation. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. But I was sobbing, the hot, silent tears of defeat and betrayal I hadn't shed since I was 8 years old. The next day, I called in sick to work, and I made a phone call I should have made a decade ago. I found a therapist, a Dr. Leland, who had a cancellation and could see me via telehealth that afternoon. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot, my laptop balanced on the steering wheel, and for the first time in my life, I told the whole story to a stranger. I told her about my job and the irony. I told her about Harper, and then, my voice cracking, I told her about the orange juice. I told her about my knees on the carpet, the smell of the chemicals, and my father walking away. And I told her what Tessa said. She said I'd understand one day. Doctor? Leland was quiet for a long time, her face calm and patient on my screen. Morgan, she said finally, her voice kind. You have been living in a high-control, coercive family system for nearly 30 years. This isn't just a difficult family. This is a classic structure. Valerie is the gatekeeper. Her weapons are shame, embarrassment, and the threat of withdrawing approval. Your father is the enabler, the peacekeeper. His role is to avoid conflict at all costs, which, in practice, means enabling Valerie, forcing you to be the one to absorb the abuse so he doesn't have to. And Tessa? I whispered. Tessa, Dr. Leland said, was given the role of the golden child. She gets validation and conditional love, but the price of that love is her absolute loyalty to the system. She has to enforce the rules. Her line to you on the porch, "You'll understand one day," wasn't a betrayal, Morgan. It was an indoctrination. She was telling you, in her own child's way. This is the price of admission. You either become a helper or you become the enemy. She chose to be a helper. You were assigned the role of the enemy, the clumsy one, the difficult one. I stared at her. So what do I do now? You've already started, she said. You've said no to the biggest ritual of the year. That was like setting off a nuclear bomb. The blowback you're experiencing is the system trying to force you back into your role. It's called an extinction burst. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So, for homework, I want you to practice a small no, something low stakes, and I want you to just sit with the discomfort, note the manipulation, but do not engage. The opportunity came the very next morning, Saturday. My phone buzzed, a text from Valerie. She was pretending the phone call had never happened. Morgan, the snow is making me nervous. I need to be at my nail appointment at 10 a.m. Be here at 9:45 to pick me up. It was not a request. It was a summons. It was her way of testing the fence, of seeing if the no from yesterday had just been a temporary tantrum. My heart was in my throat. I was back in therapy. Low stakes. Do not apologize. Do not over-explain. I typed, I am not available to do that. Harper and I have other plans. I stared at the message. I didn't say I was sorry. I didn't say, maybe next time. The reply was instantaneous. You're not available? What does that even mean? I just need a 20-minute ride. You're my daughter. I typed again. I am not available. The final text from her came. Fine, I see how it is. You just want your poor, elderly mother to drive by herself on these dangerous, snowy roads. What if something happens to me? What if I get into an accident? I guess I'll just have to risk it. Don't worry about me. I hope your plans are worth it. I read the text, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I saw the architecture of the manipulation. 1. The guilt trip. Poor elderly mother. 2. The catastrophizing. Dangerous roads. Get into an accident. 3. The passive-aggressive sign-off. Don't worry about me. I put the phone down on the counter. I was shaking. I was crying. The toxic guilt was a physical thing, like a fever. It was the most uncomfortable I had ever felt. And then I looked over. Harper was sitting at our small kitchen table, humming to herself, drawing a picture of a narwhal in a Santa hat. The morning sun was streaming in the window. The world had not ended. My daughter was safe. The house was not on fire. I was terrified. I was raw. And I was, for the first time in my entire life, completely and totally free. The day after I refused to be Valerie's chauffeur, the silence from my family was absolute. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket. I had expected more calls, more texts, more rage. Instead, there was nothing. This was a new tactic, one designed to make me feel so isolated that I would come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. My resolve was holding, but barely. It was a lonely, terrifying place to be. Then, late in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Tessa. My stomach instantly hollowed out. I prepared myself for another barrage, another accusation of being a drama queen. But the text was strange. Morgan, can we meet? Coffee? Just you and me. No mom. Please, I'm at the roast bean downtown. There was no anger, no capital letters, just a plea. The no mom was a code we had never used before. It implied a conspiracy. I was wary. This could be an ambush, a setup where Valerie would coincidentally appear to corner me in public. But the pleas felt different. It felt, for the first time in her life, like she was the one who was desperate. I found a sitter for Harper for an hour and drove downtown. The roast bean was a small, independent coffee shop, smelling of burnt espresso and wet wool. I saw her in the back corner, and my entire body tensed for the fight. She didn't look like a warrior. She looked wrecked. Her normally perfect, glossy hair was scraped back into a messy bun. She wasn't wearing makeup, and the dark, bruised-looking circles under her eyes were stark against her pale skin. She was wearing an expensive-looking coat, but she looked small in it. Her hands, usually so elegant and manicured, were wrapped around a large mug, and she was picking at her cuticles. I sat down without a word. I didn't order anything. I waited. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She just stared into her latte. "Thanks for coming," she mumbled. "What do you want, Tessa?" My voice was colder than I intended. She flinched. I don't know." She took a shaky breath. She's planning to ruin you. Morgan, for real this time." "What else is new?" I said bitterly. "You're her favorite messenger." "Tessa, did she send you here to tell me that?" "No!" Her head snapped up, and her eyes were full of a sudden, surprising fire and fear. "She doesn't know I'm here. She would kill me if she knew I was here. She would kill me if she knew I—" She trailed off, her gaze dropping back to the mug. "If you what?" Tessa was quiet for a long time, just the sounds of the coffee grinder and a quiet indie song playing over the speakers. "Do you remember?" she said, her voice so low I had to lean in. "That Christmas? The one with the orange juice?" My blood froze. This was the one subject, the one memory we had never, ever discussed. It was the forbidden, radioactive core of our entire relationship. "Of course I remember," I said. "I know what you think of me," she whispered, and a single tear slid down her cheek. Plopping onto her hand, she wiped it away, angry. "I know you think I'm her, that I'm just like her." "You told me I'd understand one day," I said, the words tasting like acid. "I understood that you were on her side, that I deserved it." "No," her voice was a choked sob. "No, that's not what I meant." She finally looked at me, her eyes desperate. "You don't remember before that, do you? When it was just me. You think she only ever hated you?" I had no answer. "She used to do it to me," Tessa said, the words tumbling out. "Before you were her target, before Dad married her, it was me, for spilling milk, for tracking in mud, for talking back. She would lock me in my room, take away my dinner, tell me I was a disgusting little pig, just like my father. She was crying openly now, not caring about the barista. When you came along," she continued, "and you spilled that juice, I saw the look on her face, and I was relieved. Morgan, God, I was so relieved, because it was you. It wasn't me anymore, and I hated myself for it. I still hate myself for it. So when I found you on the porch, I wasn't telling you that you deserved it. I was trying to warn you. I was trying to tell you what I had learned. You'll understand one day, meant you'll understand that you can't win. You'll understand that the only way to survive in this house is to be quiet, and be perfect, and never, ever spill the juice. It was a warning. The most pathetic warning one terrified kid could give another. I was stunned. The entire architecture of my childhood, the foundation of my resentment for her, was cracking. "She told me," Tessa whispered, leaning in closer. "After that, she sat me down. Maybe a year later, she told me, 'This family only has room for one perfect daughter. Tessa, one girl to make me look good. You are going to be that girl. The other one will just have to learn to be strong, to endure.' She assigned us roles, Morgan, like a play, and I was so scared of being you, of being the one on my knees on the carpet, that I took the role. I became the golden child. I did everything she said." Tears were streaming down my face now. Two, not for me, for her, for the both of us. Two different prisons, built by the same architect. "I chose to stand with her," she admitted, her voice thick with self-loathing. "Because I was a coward. Because she told me, over and over, that if both of us were problems, she would leave. That Dad's heart would break, his business would fail, and it would all be our fault, and I believed her." "Tessa," I didn't know what to say. "That's not why I called you here," she said, wiping her face with a napkin, pulling herself together. "Well, it is, but there's more." She reached down into her expensive leather tote bag and pulled out a plain manila envelope. It was thick. She slid it across the table. It made a heavy, important sound as it hit the wood. "What is this?" I've been scared for months," she said. "Ever since I got engaged, Mom's been acting weird. So, I did something bad. I was at the house. She asked me to print something from her laptop, and I looked. I went into her email. My heart stopped. She has a private lawyer, Morgan, not the one Dad uses, a guy in Newport Heights. I found these. I took pictures with my phone, then printed them out at a FedEx. She doesn't know." I opened the clasp. My hands were trembling again, but for a different reason. Inside were printouts of emails, a long, detailed thread between Valerie and a name I didn't recognize, Arthur Shaw, Eskai. The subject line was, "Reyes Property Transfer." I read them. It was all there, clear, cold, and explicit. Valerie, asking about the quickest way to secure the asset. The lawyer, explaining the process of a quit-claim deed. Valerie, asking if her son Elliot could be the sole name on the new title. The lawyer, advising that it would be cleaner and less contestable than trying to change a will. And then, the one that made me sick, an email from Valerie, dated 3 days ago. "Arthur, my husband is finally agreeing this is for the best. He is still sentimental about his late wife's wishes, so we will not be redrafting his will, as he finds it too stressful. He has agreed to sign the transfer documents on the 27th. Please have them ready." She wasn't just planning it, she had done it. She had convinced my father to sign away our house, our mother's house, in a secret end run around the will. "She's been panicking ever since you started saying no," Tessa said, her voice a rapid whisper. "The nail appointment, the Christmas dinner. You were breaking the rules. You were acting unstable. She's been using your instability as proof to Dad that you can't be trusted, that you're a loose cannon, and that protecting the asset in Elliot's name is the only safe thing to do." I was going to be sick, right there in the coffee shop. "I've had these for 2 months, Tessa confessed, looking down. I didn't know what to do. My wedding, Caleb. I was so scared if I showed them to anyone. Mom would destroy everything. She'd ruin me. But I couldn't let her just steal it. Not from Mom, not from Julia." She looked up, and she said the last thing I ever expected to hear from her. "I read your blog, Morgan." "What?" "The anonymous one. The Cleveland Crisis. About women escaping toxic families. About setting boundaries." Her face was pained. "I've been reading it for 6 months. It's you, isn't it? The details. The way you write about helping people at the centers." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. "I kept reading it," she said, "and I kept thinking, that's my sister. That's my sister. And I'm one of the people she's writing about. I'm one of her abusers. And I can't be that person anymore." We sat there, 2 women in their 30s, the wreckage of our entire lives sitting on the table between us in a cheap manila envelope. The anger I had held for her for 27 years was still there, but it was now complicated, diluted by a terrible, aching pity. She had been trapped, too, in a different, prettier cage, with better food, but still a cage. I finally understood our family. I understood the roles. Valerie, the puppeteer, my father, the willing puppet, and Tessa and I, the 2 show ponies, one trained to jump through hoops, the other trained to take the whip. "We were both so scared," I said. Finally. "I was always afraid of being unfilial, the bad daughter, the one who complains." "And I was afraid of not being the perfect daughter," she replied. "I was terrified of being you, of being disposable." We were both terrified of making my father choose, and in doing so, we had let Valerie win, every single day, for our entire lives. Tessa took one last shaky sip of her cold latte. "So, you understood, right, what I meant? That day?" I looked at her, my sister, for the first time maybe ever. I'm starting to." I closed the envelope. I slid it into my own bag. The papers felt heavy. like a weapon, but also like a key. "What are you going to do?" Tessa whispered, her eyes wide with a new terror. I stood up. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me, the same calm I felt at work when a client's abuser showed up at the shelter. "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'm not going to be on my knees scrubbing a carpet ever again, and neither are you." I left her sitting there and walked out into the cold Cleveland air. I had an ally, a broken, complicated, and terrified ally, but I had her. And I had the truth, in writing. The morning after I met Tessa, the air in my apartment felt different. It was still, but it was the stillness of a command center, not a prison. The fear was still there, a low hum beneath my ribs, but now it had a partner, focus. I called Mr. Dawson at the Legal Aid Society. "Mr. Dawson," I said, my voice crisp and professional. "This is Morgan Reyes. I was in your office 2 days ago under a client pretense. I am the client, and I have new evidence. I have copies of direct email correspondence between my stepmother and her private attorney, outlining their plan to transfer the deed to her son before the 27th of this month. I need to see you today." He cleared his schedule. I sat across from him in the same small, stuffy office, but I was not the same woman. I laid Tessa's printed emails on his desk. I laid out the blurry scan of my mother's will. He put on his reading glasses and was silent for a full 10 minutes. He read every email, then reread the will. He looked up at me, his face grim. "Ms. Reyes, Morgan, this is no longer a difficult situation. This is a conspiracy to commit fraud. This is a clear, documented case of undue influence, and it's happening fast. These emails are a gift. Your stepmother is not only admitting to the plan, she's admitting she's doing it specifically to bypass your father's stress about your mother's will. That is the legal definition of acting in bad faith." "So what does it mean?" I asked. "What can we do?" "It means," he said, leaning forward, "that if this transfer goes through, you and your sister have an exceptionally strong case to have it voided in probate court. But that's after your father dies. That's years. It's tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. It's ugly, and it will drain you." "You said that last time," I said. "You said the best thing to do is stop it before it happens. It happens on the 27th. That's in 2 days." "Exactly. The linchpin is your father. He has to be the one to stop it. Valerie is controlling the narrative. You need to present him with a different narrative, one he can't ignore." He pointed to the blurry will. "This is good, but the original is better. You said you didn't know where it was. You and your sister need to find it. Now. Today." I left his office with a clear objective. I called Tessa. "We're going on a hunt," I said. I looked at the scan of the will again. The law firm, Sussman, Doyle, and Associates, had dissolved in the early 2000s, but there was a notarization stamp, and in my mother's tin box, I found an old, thin checkbook. The address on the checks was for a small credit union in Maple Ridge, the suburb where my parents had their first apartment, before my father was successful, before Valerie. "She kept a safe deposit box there," I told Tessa, picking her up. "I remember her taking me once. I was tiny. She let me hold the key. She called it her box of secrets." Tessa was pale, her hands clutched in her lap. "Are we allowed to do this?" "We are Julia's daughters," I said. "We have her death certificate and our birth certificates. We are going to ask." The credit union was small, old-fashioned, all dark wood and linoleum. The branch manager, a kind-faced woman in her 60s, looked at our documents. "Julia Reyes," she said, her voice soft. "Oh, yes, I remember her. She was a lovely woman, a nurse, so proud of her girls." She checked her computer. "Yes, the box is still here. It's past due on its fees by about 15 years, but it was never closed out. Since you are the named heirs on her death certificate, you have the right to access it." She led us into the vault. It was cold, and it smelled like old money and steel. She produced a box. It was small. Metal. My name and Tessa's name were listed on the access card, written in my mother's looping, beautiful cursive. The manager gave us privacy. My hand was shaking as I opened it. It wasn't full of jewels. It was full of us. My first grade report card, a silver dollar from Tessa's birth year, a bundle of letters from my father, back when they were dating, full of a passion I had never seen in him. And at the very bottom, in a long sealed envelope, the last will and testament of Julia Reyes, the original, signed, notarized, and untouched. Tessa and I both just cried, silent tears in the cold vault. Did our father, or a Valerie Reyes, ever try to access this? I asked the manager when she returned. She checked her records. No, dear, only Julia. After her passing, no one ever came, no one ever asked. Valerie hadn't known, or more likely, my father had simply forgotten. Valerie had been fighting a ghost for 30 years, and she had been so consumed with the house she never thought to check the paperwork. She had assumed, as she assumed about all things, that my mother's wishes were as disorganized and emotional as she probably painted her to be. But my mother, the nurse, had been precise. We drove back to Cleveland in a snowstorm, the sacred envelope on my lap. "It's not about the money, is it?" Tessa said, staring out the window. "I mean, it is, but it's not." "No," I said. "It's not. It's about the fact that she thought of us, that she wasn't just erased. Valerie has spent my whole life trying to convince me I was a clumsy, stupid mess. She spent your whole life convincing you that you had to be perfect, and all this time, Mom just wanted us to be safe. She was trying to buy our silence with arrangements," Tessa said, her voice full of a new, hard anger. "While she was stealing this—" "Now we have a plan," I said. I met with Dawson again that evening, this time with Tessa. We laid out the original will. We laid out the emails. "We have 2 days," I said. "The 27th is the day of the signing. Christmas Day is the 25th. Dawson looked at the calendar. Valerie is using the holiday, the chaos of Caleb's family visit, as cover. She's counting on everyone being too distracted. So, we use the holiday too. The plan we formed was cold, precise, and terrifying. This was not going to be a screaming match in Valerie's living room, where she controlled the stage. This was not going to be a private, tearful confrontation with my father, where she could get to him later, twist the story, and paint us as the villains. This, as Dawson called it, would be a mediated disclosure. "We will do it on Christmas Day," Dawson said. "Valerie is expecting her perfect party. She is expecting you, Morgan, to be a ghost. Instead, you will invite your father to a neutral location, a hotel conference room. You will tell him it is to exchange Christmas gifts quietly so as not to disturb Valerie's party." "He'll never come," Tessa said. "She won't let him." "He will," I said, "if the request comes from both of us, his 2 daughters, begging for 1 hour. And when he gets there," Dawson continued, "I will be there, not as your lawyer, but as a family mediator. We will have a notary. We will have witnesses." "Who?" I asked. "Family," he said. "People Valerie can't easily discredit. You have any of those?" Tessa and I looked at each other. "Our mother's sisters," I said. "Aunt Iris and Aunt May. They live in Akron. Valerie hates them. She calls them the weeping poor. They'd be here in an hour." "Perfect," Dawson said. "You present the evidence, calmly, the will, the emails. You let him see, in a safe, controlled environment, exactly what his wife is doing. You give him the chance to be the father you've always needed, and you do it in front of witnesses, so Valerie cannot gaslight her way out of it." "And if he doesn't listen?" I asked. "If he chooses her?" Dawson's face was grim. "Then you're prepared for the probate fight. But at least you know where you stand, and you have an exit plan." That night, I put Harper to bed. I sat at my laptop. I didn't book a room in Cleveland. I booked a room at a mid-range hotel, a Residence Inn, in Newport Heights, New York. I booked it for 3 nights, checking in on the 26th. It was a one-way ticket. It was my, in case of fire, break glass plan. If my father, faced with the truth, still chose to enable his wife, if he still chose to walk away, then I would take my daughter, and I would be gone. I would have the escape route I had been drawing for my clients for years. Then, I opened a new file on my computer. I titled it, Reyes Family File. I started compiling. I printed Tessa's texts, calling me a drama queen. I printed my father's texts asking for whiskey. I went through my bank statements and highlighted every transfer to them. The 3,000 was a low estimate. It was closer to 20,000 over the last 3 years. I printed the emails from Valerie calling Harper difficult to the school counselor. I printed my own employment records, showing where I had turned down a promotion to take on overtime to help my parents. It was a stack of paper an inch thick. It was my entire life, quantified in insults and dollars. It was an indictment. I went into Harper's room. She was asleep, her stuffed harbor seal clutched in her arm. I kissed her forehead. "I'm so sorry, baby," I whispered. "I let this go on too long." The next morning, I told her, in the only way I knew how. "Honey," I said, over breakfast, "we're not going to Grandma's for Christmas. Remember how I said some people make you feel tired inside?" "Like Grandma and the squids?" she asked, her voice small. My heart ached. "Yeah, just like that. Well, we're going to do something different. We're going to have Christmas our own way, and we're going to eat at a table, a big one, where you can talk about whales and squids and any other thing you want, as loud as you want, and no one will ever tell you to be quiet." Her face split into a grin so wide it almost broke me. "Really? Can we have pizza? And that eggnog?" "We can have whatever we want," I said. It felt like the truest thing I'd ever said. Tessa called me later that day, her voice shaking. I have to tell Caleb. I can't bring him to that party on Christmas Eve. Knowing this, I can't marry him with this lie." "No," I said, "you can't. If he's the one, he needs to know who he's marrying and who he's marrying into." There was a long pause. He's the one who first said it," she whispered. "That's why I started to see. He met Mom once, at a dinner, and when we left, he was so quiet, and he just said, 'Tessa, my love, that woman is terrified of you, and I don't think anything she says is normal.' I was so angry at him, but it's what made me look. He sounds like a good one, Tess," I said. "Tell him the truth." Finally, I looked at my work schedule. I was rostered for a double shift on Christmas Day, the orphan shift, the one I always took because I had nowhere else to be. I called my boss, Maria. "Maria," I said, "it's Morgan. I know I'm scheduled for the 25th, but I'm afraid I can't come in. I have a family matter, a very, very important one." "Is everything all right, Morgan?" she asked, concern in her voice. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but it's the first time I'm taking a day off to fix it, instead of taking a day on to run away from it." I hung up. I had the will. I had the emails. I had the witnesses. I had the escape plan. I had, for the first time, a strategy. This wasn't a family dinner. It was a deposition, and Valerie's star witness, my father, had no idea he was even on the stand. The silence I had imposed lasted approximately 3 hours. Then came the extinction burst Dr. Leland had warned me about. My phone began to light up, over and over, with Valerie's name. I let it go to voicemail. The messages were a masterclass in manipulation. The first one, time-stamped at 8 p.m., was her weeping. "Morgan, honey, I don't know what I've done. You're just abandoning us? At Christmas? After all these years? What have I ever done but love you and try to give you a beautiful home? Your father is he's wandering around the house. His heart is broken. You're destroying our traditions. Morgan, please, just call me." The second one, at 9 p.m., was different. The weeping was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp ice. This is the most juvenile, selfish, and cruel thing you have ever done. I am planning a beautiful party for your sister, for her future, and you are trying to sabotage it. I don't know what kind of bitter, angry person you've become, but you will not get away with this. You are ruining your father's Christmas, and he will not forget this. I listened to the first two, just to confirm the predictable pattern. Then, as they kept coming, I just deleted them, unlistened. The sound of her voice, the one that used to send me scrambling to apologize, no longer held power. It was just noise. When the calls and texts stopped by the morning of the 23rd, I knew it wasn't over. I knew she was just changing tactics. The attack, when it came, was aimed below the waterline, at the foundations of my life. My phone rang at 10 a.m. The caller ID was Maria, my boss at the North Harbor Outreach Center. My heart leaped into my throat. Oh God, she's done it. Morgan, Maria said, her voice unusually formal. I'm calling to document an incident. I just received a call from a woman named Valerie Reyes. She identified herself as your stepmother. Maria, I am so sorry. Hold on, Morgan, Maria interrupted, and her voice softened, became kind. You don't need to apologize. You warned me this might happen. Remember? I just want to confirm what she said, for the record. I could hear her rustling papers. She claimed to be deeply concerned about your recent erratic behavior. She said you were having some kind of psychological break and were obsessed with your family. She then had the audacity to ask if I thought you were stable enough to be counseling our vulnerable clients. She said you might be projecting your own family trauma onto them. The violation felt physical. She had tried to poison my work, my sanctuary, the one place I was competent. Morgan, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. What did you say? I told her, Maria said, her voice turning to steel, that North Harbor does not, under any circumstances, discuss our employees' performance or personal matters with unauthorized individuals. I told her that your record here is exemplary, and I told her that if she had a personal, non-professional concern, she should take it up with you. And then, Morgan, I told her that if she ever called this office again in an attempt to slander one of my best employees, I would be speaking to our legal department. Tears of gratitude, not fear, streamed down my face. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me. You gave me the heads up. That's all I needed. I'm typing up an email to you and to Human Resources right now, documenting this entire call, time-stamped, with a full summary, just so you have it, for your records. I hung up. Valerie's first missile had been intercepted and disarmed. My preparation had worked. I wasn't the clumsy one. I was the prepared one. She must have sensed her failure, because the next attack came less than an hour later. This time, it was an email, forwarded to my personal account from Ms. Albright, Harper's school counselor. Subject, checking in. Dear Ms. Reyes. The email read, I am writing because I just received a rather concerning phone call from a woman identifying as your daughter's grandmother, Valerie Reyes. My stomach clenched. Not Harper. Don't you dare touch Harper. Mrs. Reyes stated that she was deeply concerned you were not in a good mental state and were planning to take Harper on an unplanned, out-of-state trip for the holiday. She said she was worried for Harper's safety and stability and asked if the school had any policies to intervene if a parent was not acting in their child's best interest. The snake. She was trying to paint me as an unfit, unstable kidnapper. But the email continued. As you and I had already discussed last week in our meeting, I was aware of your plans to spend a quiet, stress-free holiday with Harper and to use the time for some bonding. I reminded Mrs. Reyes that you are Harper's sole custodial parent and that your decisions regarding travel are your own. I also informed her that, as Harper's counselor, I have seen no evidence of instability, only a dedicated and involved parent. I am noting this call in Harper's file as a suspicious call attempting to interfere with custody. I hope everything is all right. Morgan, please let us know if we can offer any support. I put my head down on my kitchen table. The system she had always used to define me, the problem child, the unstable one, the bad mother, was now, for the first time, seeing her as the problem. Christmas Eve, the 24th, the day of Caleb's family party. The performance Valerie had been planning for months. I was making pancakes for Harper, our own new tradition, when my phone exploded, not from Valerie, from my Aunt Clara, my father's sister, a woman who believed every word Valerie said. "Morgan, I am disgusted. Your mother is in the hospital. Your father is a wreck. I hope you are proud of yourself for what you've done to this family." Another one, a cousin, heard about Valerie, sending prayers. What happened? And then, a text from Tessa. "Morgan, are you seeing this? Aunt Clara is blowing up my phone. She says Mom is in the hospital, Cleveland Clinic. Heart palpitations." My blood ran cold. What if she's not lying? What if the stress? No, I stopped. I was Morgan Reyes, the crisis counselor. I was not Morgan, the 8-year-old girl. I took a breath and did what any healthcare-adjacent professional would do. I picked up the phone and called the Cleveland Clinic's main switchboard. "Hi," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "I'm calling to get information on a patient, Valerie Reyes, Reyes." The operator clicked away. "One moment. I'm searching our inpatient directory and our emergency department admissions for the last 12 hours. No, ma'am. I have no patient by that name." "Could you check St. Vincent's downtown campus?" "Checking. No, ma'am. No Valerie Reyes." She wasn't there. She had never been there. It was the nuclear option, the ultimate manipulation, a performance of fragility designed to bring the entire family, armed with guilt and pitchforks, to her defense. I called Tessa back. "She's not there. I called the hospitals. She's lying." "Oh my God," Tessa whispered. She's insane. She would do that. She would lie about being in the hospital, on Christmas Eve, just to ruin us." "Yes," I said, "she would." I hung up and called Valerie's cell. She picked up on the first ring, her voice a theatrical, heartbreaking whisper. "Hello?" "You're not at the hospital, Valerie," I said. The whisper vanished. There was a sharp intake of breath. How dare you? The doctors sent me home. They said I have to rest, that my heart." I just called the main hospitals. "Valerie, you were never admitted. You were never even in the emergency room." There was a long pause, filled with her panting, indignant rage. Then, the tears, a full-blown wail. "I didn't have to be in the hospital," she shrieked, the performance back, but this time for an audience of one. The pain in my chest was real. I was dying. I am so stressed, so heartbroken by what you and your sister are doing, that I feel like I am in the hospital. Mentally, I am in intensive care, and this is your fault." It was the most absurd, most pathetic, most perfectly Valerie thing I had ever heard. "I have to go, Valerie," I said, and I hung up on her sob. 10 minutes later, my father called. "Morgan," he said, his voice a low, nervous rumble. He sounded exhausted. "Hi, Dad. You've really done it now, kiddo. Your mother she's in a bad way, her heart. She's not in the hospital, Dad. Well, no. But she's sick, Morgan. She's so stressed. You know her heart is weak. You can't be doing this to her. Not at Christmas. Just come over. Bring Harper. Bring the potato salad. Just make this right." And then I heard it, in the background, muffled but clear as a bell. Valerie's voice, coaching him. Tell her I can't stop crying. Tell her she's breaking your heart." He was a ventriloquist dummy. He was her mouthpiece. The last thread of hope I had that he would ever stand up for me snapped. "Dad," I said, my voice hard as ice, cutting him off. "Dad, are you listening to me?" "What?" he said, startled. "I am not doing this to her. This is not about tradition. This is about her calling my boss. This is about her calling Harper's school. This is about her and you trying to sign away Mom's house to Elliot on the 27th? The silence on his end was total. I had said the magic words. What? What are you talking about? He stammered. That's just business. Estate planning. It's not estate planning, Dad. It's theft. And I will not be coming to the house. I will not be bringing Harper into a home where she is called tiresome and where I am uninvited from the table. I love you. But this is not tradition. This is abuse. And it's over. Morgan, wait. Don't hang up. Tessa and I are going to meet you tomorrow. Dad, just you. We're going to exchange gifts. I'll text you the address. You can come, or you can stay there. It's your choice. I hung up. I didn't give him a chance to answer. The last message of the day came an hour later. It wasn't a call. It was a text. From Valerie. Her final shot. If you walk out on this family on Christmas Day, after everything I've done for you, don't you ever bother coming back. This is your last chance. Morgan, you choose, us, or whatever bitter, lonely life you're planning. If you're not at this house tomorrow, you are no longer my daughter. I read the text. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel sadness. I felt relief. I took a screenshot. I saved it. I forwarded it to Dawson. I added it to the Reyes family file. My phone buzzed again. It was Tessa. She sent you the text, didn't she? The don't ever come back one? How did you know? She gave me the same one, Tessa wrote. When I was 18, when I wanted to go to college in California, she told me if I abandoned her and Dad, if I chose a school she didn't approve of, I'd be cut off. No money, no family. Don't ever come back. My God, Tess, what did you do? What do you think I did? She replied. I stayed. I went to Cleveland State. I did what she wanted. It was the biggest regret of my life. Don't let her do it to you. Morgan, don't be me. I won't be, I texted back. The plan is on. Tomorrow, noon, the downtown Marriott, conference room B. We had confirmed the plan. Dawson was ready. Caleb, who Tessa had finally told everything, was coming. Our aunts were on their way from Akron. The trial, as I was now calling it, was set. This wasn't a family gathering at Valerie's house. It was a formal hearing, on neutral ground, and Valerie, the self-appointed judge, jury, and executioner of my entire life, had no idea she was the one about to be served. Conference Room B at the downtown Cleveland Marriott was a special kind of hell. It was sterile, soulless, and smelled faintly of industrial carpet cleaner and stale coffee. It was perfect. A long, polished table reflected the dull, fluorescent lights. A pitcher of ice water sat sweating in the center. I had my laptop open. The Reyes family file was on the desktop. Ready. Harper was next door, in room 1205, with a woman named Ms. Janet, a bonded and vetted sitter I'd hired through a service. I had told Harper it was a special mom work day and a pizza adventure. When I left her 5 minutes ago, she was already deep in a documentary about bioluminescent fish, her mouth stained with tomato sauce. She was safe. That was the only thing that made it possible for me to breathe. At exactly 12 noon, the door opened. My father, Mark Reyes, walked in. He looked rumpled, confused, and was holding a single, awkwardly wrapped gift bag. He stopped dead. He saw me, at the head of the table. He saw Tessa, next to me, pale as a ghost. He saw Mr. Dawson, in a dark suit, looking like the lawyer he was. He saw Caleb, Tessa's fiancé, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder, and his eyes widened in genuine shock when he saw the two women at the other end. May? Iris? He stammered, looking at my mother's sisters. What? What in the world? What is this? Morgan? I thought we were just exchanging gifts. We are, Dad, I said, my voice steady. Please, sit down. We're waiting for one more person. I don't understand. The door flew open at 5 minutes past 12. Valerie. She was dressed for her performance, a vision in winter white cashmere, Her hair perfect, her pearls gleaming. She must have expected to find me and Tessa in the lobby, weeping, ready to beg our way back to the party. She saw the room. Her eyes, sharp and quick, took in every person. My father, looking trapped. Me and Tessa, united. A strange man in a suit, and with visible, undisguised contempt. My aunts Iris and May. Her face, so perfectly made up, hardened into a mask of pure reptilian rage. "What is this?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the quiet. "What is this ridiculous circus? Mark, what are they doing here?" She gestured to my aunts. "And who the hell is he?" She marched over and grabbed my father's arm. "Mark, we are leaving. Now. Our guests are waiting. I will not be a part of this. This ambush." She tried to pull him from the chair. He looked at her, then at me. "Sit down, Valerie," I said. My voice didn't shake. It was a command. It was the voice I used at the center when an abuser was trying to get past the front desk. Valerie froze. She had never heard that voice. "Please, Dad, sit," I continued. "Today, for the first time, we just want everyone to hear the truth, all at once. We brought witnesses, so that no one can forget or misspeak about what is said in this room. Please." The word witnesses landed. My father, confused but compliant, pulled his arm from Valerie's grasp and sat down heavily. Valerie was left standing, vibrating with fury. She looked at the closed door, then at my father's back. With a hiss, she yanked out a chair and sat, as far from my aunts as possible. "Mr. Dawson stood up. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice calm and authoritative, filling the room. "My name is Mr. Dawson. I'm an attorney, and I've been invited here today to act as a mediator and to review some important family documents. Thank you all for coming." "An attorney?" Valerie's voice was a shriek. "I knew it! You're suing us! You're suing your own father? On Christmas Day? My God, Morgan, you are even sicker than I thought." "I'm not suing anyone, Valerie," I said. "I'm just presenting the facts, Mr. Dawson." Dawson continued as if she hadn't spoken. "We are here today to discuss the last will and testament of Julia Reyes." That hit her. The color drained from her face, leaving her foundation looking stark and yellow. "This," Dawson said, "is the original, notarized document recovered from Mrs. Reyes's safe deposit box." He nodded at Tessa. Tessa stood up. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the paper. Caleb placed a steadying hand on her back. This is the will of our mother, Julia, Article 4, regarding real property." Her voice was thin, but she read every word. The clause about the house, the clause about my father's remarriage, the final, binding wish that upon his death, the house would be divided equally and only between my two beloved daughters, Morgan Julia Reyes and Tessa Marie Reyes. When she finished, the silence was absolute. My father was the first to speak, his voice a bewildered whisper. I never knew. I thought Julia and we had simple wills. I thought everything just went to me. She never told me she added that." "But you knew," Tessa said, looking directly at Valerie. "This is absurd," Valerie snapped, finding her voice. "It's ancient history. It's a meaningless, sentimental piece of paper. Mark and I have updated our estate planning. This is trash." "It's not trash," I said. I plugged my laptop into the large monitor at the end of the room. The screen flickered to life. "It's not trash, because you were actively trying to get around it, in secret." I projected the first image, an email, from Valerie Reyes to Arthur Shaw, Esquire, subject, Reyes property transfer. "Who is Arthur Shaw? Valerie?" I asked, my voice as cold as the ice water. "He's not Dad's lawyer." You, she sputtered. "You went into my computer? You hacked my private email? Mark, that's a crime. This is an invasion of privacy. This is..." This is illegal. Let's call the police. Then, I said, I'm sure they'd be very interested in this entire conversation. This is an email from you to your secret lawyer, dated 3 weeks ago, discussing the quickest way to secure the asset by moving the deed of our mother's house into your son Elliot's name. You have a signing appointment for the 27th, don't you? My father looked like he'd been shot. Valerie? What? What is this? Elliot? Why Elliot? That's my house. It was just advice, Valerie screamed, leaping to her feet. Just preliminary advice, exploring options for our future. It's what smart people do. I haven't done anything wrong. Ma'am, Mr. Dawson cut in, his voice like a gavel. The emails clearly state your intent to have your husband sign transfer documents on the 27th, and your stated motive, your words, is to bypass his stress about his late wife's will. That is not exploring options. That is a documented bad faith conspiracy to commit financial fraud against the heirs of this estate. This is slander. No, it isn't, dear. The voice came from my Aunt Iris. She was a small, quiet woman, but she was radiating anger. She's right. Mark, this isn't a new plan. You be quiet, Iris, Valerie hissed. You have no place here. I have every place, Iris said, her voice shaking but gaining strength. She was my sister, Mark. Do you remember your nephew's graduation, about 10 years ago? We were all at the reception. Valerie had a few too many glasses of champagne. She was complaining to me about the upkeep on the house, and I remember she laughed, and she put her hand on my arm, and she said, "It's all right. Soon enough, this house, this whole nest, will be mine and my son's. The past will be scrubbed clean." I thought she was just drunk and cruel. I didn't realize she was telling me the plan. My father just stared at Valerie. Valerie, did you say that? Of course not. She's a bitter old woman. She's lying. They're all lying. Let's talk about the past, I said. I clicked the remote. The email vanished, replaced by a new screen, a spreadsheet, my Reyes family file. It was a simple table. Date, amount, transferred to, reason. Line after line. $100, Mark Reyes. Whiskey for party, $250. Tessa Reyes. Engagement dress deposit, $500. Valerie Reyes. Help with utilities, $80. Mark Reyes. Pharmacy bill. What? What is this? My father whispered, leaning forward, squinting. That, I said, is my bank statement. For the last 2 years, I've been your emergency fund, the family ATM. The total is at the bottom. Scroll down. On the screen, the final tally glowed. Total, $22,540. My father made a choking sound. My God, Morgan, I had no idea. Tessa was openly weeping, her face in her hands. Oh God, Morgan, I'm so sorry. Valerie just scoffed, crossing her arms. Oh, boo-hoo. It is normal for children to help their parents. It's called respect. It's called family, a concept you two clearly know nothing about. I don't mind helping, I said, my voice shaking with a cold fury. I mind being the family ATM and the family servant, and then being told I am not good enough to sit at the table. I mind being uninvited from Christmas so you can impress your new friends, while still being expected to cater the party. I am done being your unpaid labor. And speaking of not good enough, Mr. Dawson said, his voice flat. He clicked to the next exhibit. The email. From Valerie Reyes to Ms. Albright, Harper's school counselor. He read the words aloud. Deeply concerned. Mother's erratic behavior. Unstable parent. Worried for Harper's safety. Intervene. My father stood up. Valerie, you called her school? I was concerned, Valerie shrieked, finally and completely undone, her mask of composure shattered. She is erratic. She's a problem. She always has been. And that child she's trouble. She's weird. She won't sit still. She flaps her hands. She's an embarrassment. I was trying to protect the family from her. She is not, I roared, standing up so fast my chair fell over. It's all lies, Valerie screamed, turning her rage on my father, who was just standing there, white-faced. Mark, she is making it all up. She's fabricating this. She's poisoning Tessa against me. It's lies. No, it's not. The voice was Tessa's. She had stood up, her face a mask of tears and rage. She held up her phone. It's not a lie, Mom. It's not. She opened her text messages, the private chat between her and Valerie. This is from last month, when I sent you that photo of me and Caleb and Harper at the park. She read Valerie's text to the silent room. He's a lovely man, Tessa, but for the Christmas photos, please, try to keep Harper out of the main shots. She's just a bit much, and I want everything to be perfect. That was it. The room broke. Aunt Iris let out a sob. Caleb stood up and put his arm around Tessa, pulling her close. And my father, Mark Reyes, the man who had spent 3 decades walking away from conflict, held up his hand. Valerie? She was still rantering. And she's a liar. And this is slander. And I'm calling a real lawyer. And you'll all be sorry. Valerie, stop. He had never, in my entire life, used that voice. It was not loud. It was dead. It was flat. And it was final. The room went silent. She froze, her mouth open, a word half-formed. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. He looked at Tessa. He looked at the will. He looked at the emails. He looked at the $22,000 total on the screen. He turned to his wife. Let me just read everything, he said, his voice hoarse. In order, from the beginning. Mark, this is insane. Valerie tried one last time, her voice a desperate sneer. You're not really listening to this, are you? She's crazy. She works at that center for broken, crazy people. Look what you've done. She spat at me. You've infected us. You've brought all that sickness, all that victim crap, right into this family. Before I could even answer, Dawson stepped forward. Mrs. Reyes, that is enough. This is not the place to stigmatize mental health or the vital work Ms. Reyes does. We are here to discuss facts, and the facts are all on this table. My father didn't even acknowledge the outburst. He was just staring at the table, at the stack of papers, the will, the emails, the texts, the financial report. He looked up, and his eyes, for the first time, were clear. He looked at Valerie, really looked at her, as if for the first time in 27 years. Then he looked at me. Valerie, he said, his voice a low, heavy, cracking sound. It seems the person destroying this family isn't my daughter. The silence that fell in that room was absolute. It was a physical weight. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant sound of a holiday movie playing in the hotel bar, the shuffling of feet in the hallway. Every tiny noise was amplified. My father stood motionless, his hands flat on the polished table, his gaze fixed on the stack of papers. He looked, in that moment, 10 years older. She told me, he said, his voice so quiet we all had to lean in. Julia, your mother, before she passed. We were in the hospital. She was lucid that day, and she grabbed my hand. He looked up at me, his eyes swimming with a memory I had never been allowed to see. She said, Mark, you're a good man, but you're a weak man. You hate to fight. You'll find someone new. And that's okay. But don't let my girls become servants in their own home. Don't let them be erased. I told her she was being morbid. I told her not to talk like that. I didn't understand what she meant. He took a ragged breath. And then, after, I met Valerie, and the house was perfect. The meals were perfect. She managed everything. It was just easier. It was easier to keep the peace. It was easier to let her handle the girls, to let her handle everything. He looked directly at me and Tessa, and the shame on his face was a terrible thing to see. "I chose the easy path," he whispered. "I chose the path of least resistance, every day, for 27 years, and you too. You paid for my peace. I let her make you the help. I let her control our lives with her vision, and God, I am so sorry. To both of you. I am so sorry I wasn't the father your mother deserved. I am so sorry I wasn't stronger." This was the cue, the confession, the vacuum of his apology, and Valerie, a master of emotional physics, tried to fill it. "Mark, darling," she cried, the rage instantly vanishing. Replaced by a flood of theatrical tears, she rushed to his side, tried to put her hand on his arm. "Mark, you have nothing to apologize for. You are a good man. I just wanted a beautiful home. I just wanted a nice, respectable family. Is that so wrong?" She spun to face my aunts, to face Dawson, a performer playing to the jury. "I worked my fingers to the bone for this family. I gave them everything. I hosted every holiday. And this is the thanks I get? Ungrateful, vicious, children who want to poison their poor father against me." It was a magnificent performance. 10 years ago, it would have brought the house down. It would have made me and Tessa the villains. But the audience had already read the script. No one moved. No one spoke. Aunt Iris just looked at her with a profound, sad pity. Dawson looked at his watch. My father gently but firmly removed her hand from his arm. "No, Valerie," he said, his voice flat with a new, cold exhaustion. "No more. It's done." He reached down into the leather briefcase he'd brought in, the one I assumed was holding our gifts. I called Mr. Dawson this morning," he said, not looking at anyone. "After Morgan, after she told me about the 27th, I asked him to prepare some papers." He pulled out a sheaf of documents. "This," he said, his voice gaining a small, metallic thread of strength. "This is a legal document. It is a full and final revocation of intent to transfer. It cancels any and all pending changes to the deed of the Elmwood property, effective immediately." He pulled out a second stack. "And this is a legal reaffirmation of testamentary intent. It states, in binding, legal terms, that I am of sound mind, and that I am reaffirming the original clause in Julia Reyes's will, that the house, upon my death, will pass to my daughters, Morgan and Tessa, and that this clause cannot be altered in any way without the express, written, and notarized signatures of all three of us, myself, Morgan, and Tessa." He took a pen from his jacket pocket, in front of us, in front of the witnesses. With a hand that was surprisingly steady, he signed his name, he signed the revocation, he signed the reaffirmation. He looked at the notary Dawson had brought. "Witnessed?" He slid 2 copies across the table, one to me, one to Tessa. This house is not perfect," he said, his voice thick. "But it belonged to your mother. It belongs to you. It will always belong to you too. First, before anyone, before anything, whatever you decide to do with it, sell it, keep it. It is your choice, your legacy, not mine, and not hers." Valerie didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stopped breathing. It was the sound of a queen being checkmated, the sound of a puppeteer realizing her strings had been cut. The man she had controlled, the man she had managed for 3 decades, had just made the single biggest move of his life, entirely without her. Her face, a mask of foundation and rage, contorted. "Mark!" she shrieked, the tears gone, the true, unfiltered venom coming through. Have you lost your mind? After everything I have done for you? Fine, fine. Keep the stupid, drafty house. I never wanted it. I want a divorce. Do you hear me? You are choosing them? After I gave you a life? A beautiful life? I am done. She was screaming, but the argument was hollow. The family she had always claimed to be protecting, the tradition she was upholding, had just been revealed for what it was, a financial strategy, and she had lost. I was calm. The shaking was gone. I looked at her. You can do whatever you need to do, Valerie, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through her screams. That is your choice, but I am not the 8-year-old girl who is going to scrub this floor to make you look good. I am not the clumsy one. I am not the problem. I'm just done. The circle was closed. Tessa, who had been silent, her face a mess of tears, stepped forward. And Dad, she said, her voice shaking, but hard. If we are going to be a family, whatever that even means, you are going to therapy. We all are. And if you stay with her, she couldn't say the name. There are new rules. You will never, ever, ask Morgan to cook a meal again, unless you are paying her catering rates. You will never speak about Harper, my niece, in any way that is not with love and full respect, and you will never, ever, use a fake heart condition to manipulate us again. Those are the boundaries, or we are both gone, for good. My father was nodding, his face buried in his hands. Yes, he choked out. Whatever. Therapy. Yes, of course. Anything. I put my hand on Tessa's arm. I'm not promising forgiveness, Dad, I said. I can't. Not now. Maybe not ever. The only thing I can promise is this. I am going to make sure my daughter grows up knowing that love is not submission. I am going to make sure Harper never, ever believes her job is to make someone else comfortable by making herself small. Valerie let out a sound of pure animal disgust. I am leaving, she spat, grabbing her $2,000 purse. I am going home, and I am packing my bags. I am done with this entire sick, ungrateful family. She stormed out of the conference room, slamming the door so hard the water pitcher rattled. My father flinched. He made a move, a small, instinctive step, to go after her. Dad, I said. He stopped. He looked at the door she had exited. He looked at the two of us. He sank back into his chair, a broken man. I'll go home later, he mumbled. It's not a one-person stage anymore, is it? The power was broken. Mr. Dawson stood up, calmly gathering his papers. He had performed his duty. Well, he said, clearing his throat, that concludes this mediation. The documents are signed, witnessed, and will be filed at the courthouse Tuesday morning. Mrs. Reyes, Miss Reyes, Mr. Reyes. To be clear, the legal arrangement is now that any future changes to the deed, title, or estate planning regarding the Elmwood property must have the written, notarized signatures of Mark Reyes, Morgan Reyes, and Tessa Reyes. It is locked. My work here is done. My aunts came over, and for the first time in my memory, we hugged, really hugged. They were crying. Julia would be so proud, Aunt Iris whispered, her voice thick. So proud. As everyone was gathering their coats, the door to the conference room opened again. It was Ms. Janet, the sitter, and right behind her, Harper. Mommy, she yelled, running to me, ignoring everyone else in the room. Mommy, Ms. Janet let me order pizza, and we watched the whole documentary on the vampire squid. It's not a squid, Mommy. It's its own order, and it has bioluminescent. She was clutching a piece of paper. Look, I drew it. I picked her up, my arms strong and sure. She wasn't heavy at all. What did you draw, baby? She unfolded a piece of hotel stationery. On it, she had drawn a very, very long table. It was covered in drawings of fish, and whales, and pizza. It had dozens of chairs, and in 2 of the chairs, she had written names in her big, careful, 8-year-old printing. Morgan, Harper. "It's us," she said, beaming. "It's our Christmas dinner, and there's a chair for me, and there's a chair for you, and no one is in the kitchen." I held her so tight. I buried my face in her hair. I looked at Tessa, who was watching us with a broken, beautiful smile. I looked at my father, who was watching us with a look of profound, bottomless regret. And I understood. My revenge was never about destroying Valerie. It wasn't about the money or the house. It was about this. It was about breaking the script. It was about shattering the generational curse so that my daughter would never, ever have to learn the rules of her own prison. It was ensuring that she would grow up knowing, without a shadow of a doubt, that she always had a seat at the table. That night, we weren't in Cleveland. I had canceled the Newport Heights escape plan. I didn't need it, but I wasn't staying there. I had cashed in the overtime I was owed from the center and used it to check us into that same downtown Marriott. It was Christmas night, in our small hotel room. Tessa, Caleb, Harper, and I were sitting on the floor. There was no turkey. There was no potato salad. There were 3 large, greasy boxes of pizza and a plastic container of store-bought eggnog. Harper was sitting in the middle of the floor, talking, uninterrupted, for 20 minutes about the mating habits of humpback whales. Caleb was listening, rapt, asking her detailed questions about their fluke patterns. Tessa was smiling, a real smile, holding his hand. I leaned back against the headboard, a paper cup in my hand. It was full of apple juice. I watched my daughter, my free, loud, brilliant, flapping hands daughter, and I smiled. I thought about what would happen if I spilled this juice, right now, all over the beige hotel carpet. And the answer was, nothing. We'd get a towel, we'd wipe it up. No one's life would be ruined. No one would be shamed. No one would be made to feel small. It would just be a spill. I took a sip, and for the first time since I was 8 years old, it tasted like freedom. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments so we can connect and share our thoughts. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories. Like this video, and if you can, support us by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.